Fundamentals. It's what we need to master to have a foundation before we can move on with better and harder skills. So this is something that everyone has to start with, and that's what we're going to talk about today. When it comes to fundamentals, it's very simple things, but we have to get there and get past it so that we can move on. Now, when we're thinking about fundamentals, we'll go through stance, grip, trigger control, sight picture, sight alignment, and things like that. So starting first with stance. The big disclaimer is that when it comes to, say, a real life self-defense situation, we're not necessarily going to be able to determine the stance that we will be able to be in. We might not even be standing. We might be seated or for some reason even on the ground. So that's the big disclaimer. But when it comes to being able to choose our stance, say when we're just at shooting range or we're dry firing or things like that, what we're going to want to have is basically feet shoulder width apart in an athletic kind of stance. Some people even say a fighter stance, maybe a foot with non-dominant foot, a half step forward or something like that, being able to deal recoil management, have a good aggressive stance or an athletic stance so you can move and things like that. A big thing for us is with the movement aspect is it's going to then come up to our knees. Honestly, our knees, we're having a slight bend in them so we can lower our center of gravity a little bit. I'm not talking about getting into a full, squat position or something like that. Just a little bend in the knees for, really being able to have that movement, the lower center of gravity and things like that. If we were actually get into a real life self-defense situation, we would be, flinching and things like that. And so we would be lowering our center of gravity. Our body natural instinct is trying to get away basically from danger and things like that. Then moving on up to our upper body and everything that's going on with that. First off, we've got our torso, and when we're looking at it, we're not really doing much. We're just standing straight up, honestly, so that we're not really putting our whole upper body, our whole torso into something and tensing all the muscles up and things like that. We're honestly just, maybe I would say, lean slightly forward, because some people, what they do when they bring their handgun up is they actually lean back for some reason to kind of try to find the sights. So stand straight up. If you want to lean forward a little bit, just so that you're already leaning forward and you bring those sights up, you're not going to then for some reason start leaning back, would be my only suggestion. When it comes to that, just rocking no mag with my barrel block, so it's visual indicator and it's the chamber plug there. When we're coming up, then from there is we're extending our arms out, and they're just extended out. And our elbows, the big thing for our elbows is they're going to be outwards, not down as they would be basically pointed to the ground. They're going to be outwards, and it will help with then our grip with our hands and the torque motion and things that we'll talk about later. Now when it comes to grip, we're getting the web of our firing hand as high as possible onto that handgun. So as you can see, I'm not just grabbing on and wherever, because this is a big gap that I have here with the action, just the slide here. It's moving, and so it's going to go in the path of least resistance, which is, wherever that, hand is not. So if we can get the web in as high as possible, we're really getting it tight on the back of that handgun. Then we're going to wrap all of our fingers around except for the trigger finger itself, which is going to stay high. And then from there, on the opposite side, we have our support hand. Our support hand is what's really getting our grip in there. So our shooting hand, we're of course, actually wrapping around the handgun, and we're getting a good grip. Some people like to call it a master grip. So excellent analogy. But the big thing is, when thinking about it, don't think master grip as in you're just like really smashing down for your shooting hand. You're not. You're just trying to give a firm handshake so that you just have a hold of the handgun. Because when it comes to the shooting hand, is if we are squeezing too hard with the other fingers when we need to actually shoot, we can actually not have good efficiency with our trigger finger. Or also thinking about it with that trigger finger that's moving, well, if we're moving it, as you can see, our other fingers will come into play with that movement. And what can happen is then a movement of the whole handgun. So I'll show you here with the training sights. Basically, if I have, this is my perfect sight picture saying on me, on the target with my perfect sight alignment, right? So if I am moving my trigger finger too much where my rest of my fingers are also squeezing and causing movement on the handgun. For then me as a righty, my front sight, the whole gun itself, my front sight is moving, right? And so then it's causing those misses. Lefties, obviously the opposite way, is causing movement of the handgun, which then the sights are playing off, so the direction of travel of the actual round is going to be off, which will cause misses. So that's why we want to have good, efficient, slow, not slow, but steady, smooth movement of the trigger finger. Obviously, when we start, just doing it slow to get that smooth, and then continuing on, you'll ramp it up. But we want that smooth movement of our trigger finger so that we're not causing a lot of motion with the whole hand that's causing the whole pistol to move and things like that. Now, with that, like I was saying, the support hand comes to effect, and that's what's really gripping it and really causing the good support and not letting the handgun move at all. So we have all this open real estate here on the frame of the handgun. We're going to get our meaty portion here of the palm in there, kind of pointing the fingers down, so it's going to help with the torque. All these fingers are coming into these gaps right here, and they're filling in those gaps. With the palm in there and the gaps filled, then we're just layering our thumbs on this opposite side in a straight line along the frame, just as like the trigger finger is on the opposite side. And when we have that good grip there, we're then able to extend it out, getting a good stance, standing up straight, and we're bringing these sights, as we saw earlier, our sight picture, our sight alignment, bringing those sights right into our line of sight. Basically the direct line from our eye to a threat, a target out there. It's coming right into that line of sight, and we're able to then get it in there. And then from there, we're keeping both eyes open, thinking in a real life self-defense situation. This isn't, a marksmanship shooting. We're not doing a precision shot or something like that. We're trying to keep both eyes open. One, thinking of a real life self-defense situation. We're wanting to have full range of our vision, full field of vision there. And we're not trying to like close 40% of our vision or something like that. And also, if a real life self-defense situation were to happen, everything that's playing in, our natural response, our body, adrenaline rush, blood's pumping, it's through the roof, and our eyes are going to be open because they're focusing on what's going on. So we're not going to be able to control our eyes, like closing one of the eyes or something like that. So obviously, we fight that way. We're going to want to train that way. But these are the simple, the fundamentals, guys, that we have to master. We're just getting our feet shoulder width apart, knees are slightly bent, standing straight up, maybe leaning a little forward, so in the end, you're not trying to find your sights or something like that. And then you're extending your arms out with those elbows out, so that then we have it here, and we're causing a kind of tension motion with both hands. Kind of like a good analogy is you're holding onto a horseshoe and you're trying to straighten it, as I think Brandon Wright said, or Tony Cowden, one of those two. And so it's a good tension motion, and with that, you really see the elbows out is what's helping with that recoil management that you're doing, so that when you have the recoil management happen, say I would take a shot, it's causing it just to come straight back instead of us engaging other parts of our body and things like that. We're really hardening all the body parts and not being able to transition well or move or things like that. And we're really locking it in basically right here from like the elbows and forward, and we're able to deal with all that recoil there. So guys, these are what we need to master, the fundamentals, so that we can move on and better your reactive defense.